Hi, my name is Mark Newman, Chief Analyst at TM Forum. Delighted to be joined today by Matt Halligan. Matt's CTO at Optiva. Hello, Matt.
How are you doing, Mark? Hello, everyone.
Thank you. And we're here to talk about telecom services beyond connectivity. It's a subject that we've been talking about for many years. We'll continue to talk about for many years, but it's obviously a key theme for the industry. This conversation, it comes off the back of a report that we've produced with Optiva called To Connectivity and Beyond, Inside Telco's Quest for New Revenue. We'd urge you to read that. It's a really nice, concise look at what beyond connectivity means, what it is, what it will be. So Matt, just to kickstart this discussion, could you give us your thoughts on when we talk about services beyond connectivity, what are the main categories here we're really referring to?
Yeah, so well, as you can imagine, it's a pretty complex and vast area, and it's evolving. So I'll give you my perspective as we see it today, and of course, maybe in 6 months that'll of course mature even further. But before we go beyond connectivity, I think connectivity itself is evolving. As you've got the catalyst around 5G. Clearly, with network slicing, you're opening up the opportunity for private networks. We're definitely seeing opportunities there, and then fixed wireless access, which is an additional revenue growth, which is a B2C model. But beyond the connectivity itself, I think you're starting to expose what I would call the B2B enterprise type arena, whereby the ability with 5G to start servicing those enterprises, which really for me has eluded to some extent the operators in the past. So traditional B2B being very much as we look at smart cities, smart homes, and then we go to the area of IoT, where we're kind of going into the more B2B to X type space, where you've got mass volumes of devices. You're looking at scenarios such as simple logistics. Managing, tracking, kind of like highly priced parcels, simple things like dog tracking, healthcare being another vertical, automotive being another vertical, fleet management. So they're all kind of like the general areas. So for me, connectivity is a service and how it evolves, and then how you approach the B2B and B2B to X market.
Yeah, it's interesting. So connectivity in itself is becoming richer.
Yeah.
So in many ways, a beyond connectivity strategy can involve more connectivity. But I guess that extra connectivity gives you the opportunity to maybe bring new revenue streams on top of that connectivity. So it's quite a complex arena. And that categorization you talked about, Matt, is really interesting, because how do you decide what the segments are for these new services? It's all within B2B, B2B to X, but do you cut it by vertical? Do you cut it by IoT security? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, and actually maybe that's the key to success, isn't it? Which is, I think if you want to be all things to everyone, it's clear you're going to fail. So I think you need to basically niche yourself. And that doesn't mean you just have one vertical, but you need to do a vertical well. And that kind of lends into, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the other side, and you need to solve for their problems. And if you cast your mind back to when 4G came along, and there was this whole embracing or attempt to embrace the over-the-top players, and it's still there, but I think we would all agree it was limited success. And that limited success, I think, was because the over-the-top players speak a certain language, and the operators speak a different language. And I think the two just did not meet together. And I think the opportunity here, as you look at enterprises, you have to provide solutions for that vertical. You can't provide a generic solution. You have to talk the language of that vertical. You have to provide a digital experience, which is something we should definitely talk about, that I think is becoming more and more relevant in this digital world, which is you got to provide that digital experience that helps them in their life cycle. And I think if the operators can solve that, and the technology providers help them solve that, I think there is definitely clear opportunity for new revenue streams.
And you touched on this already, Matt, but do we think that the lack of focus until now. The fact that telcos have tried to expand in so many areas has been one of the reasons why they found it such a challenge. And now you're saying maybe that need to focus, maybe operators are more aware of that.
And of course, I can have my view, and I want to be very careful that I don't trivialize it. But I think they, for me, they took a generic approach, and they treated it similar to how maybe the B2C model is, which is connectivity. Yeah, so that's a simplistic model, but connectivity for an oil manufacturing vertical is very different to connectivity for the automotive space.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about beyond connectivity, and this is where I don't think it's mutually exclusive. It's what services you offer in your assets to that vertical. As an example, for automotive, location, of course, is a huge asset. Yeah. For immersive gaming, latency and quality of service is a fundamental asset. So you've got to expose the right assets to the right vertical. Whereas if you offer them everything, they really won't know how to navigate it because they operate in a pure business view. Whereas I think the operators traditionally have came more from a technology perspective. My view is, I think that has been a big barrier to success. And also a reason for the tension, which I think we all admit exists between the view of the let's call it the enterprise and over the top players to what the telcos are. They view them as a bit pipe. They don't even say connectivity as a service. Whereas I think there's an opportunity to turn around that message and for the operators to prove themselves by going into specific niches.
So we have a pretty clear vision of what telcos could and should do in terms of beyond connectivity. What are the skills and capabilities they're going to need to be successful? And I guess, how can technology partners such as Optiva help them to be successful?
Yeah, so when we look at this, Mark, we in Optiva, we look at it in three levels. We look at it from a business perspective, commercial, and then technology. And we start from the business perspective first because technology is a means to an end. And when we look at it, the business, for me, it's all about how you onboard the enterprises, how you engage with them, and the technology that enables that seamless digital experience to engage them. When we look at the actual commercial side, for us, it's making sure we have the capabilities for subscription-based models as well as more traditional-based models, because you need that flexibility on the different verticals. As we said, the different verticals within the enterprise space will vary, and you've got to cater for the verticals you're going to focus on. For us, especially as we enter the IoT, scale is everything. So we're pretty proud about how we've done value-based charging in our charging portfolio, whereby all charging models are not equal. When you're handling a traditional consumer, you need to handle them in terms of audit trail security in a certain way. When you're handling 10 million devices, where the ARPU per device is a fraction of that for a traditional consumer, of course you can't fit it the same model. So you have to be creative, introduce new patterns, and that's where we've revolutionized our technology to look at it from an IoT perspective. So we have our way of handling what we would call low ARPU value propositions and high ARPU value propositions. And that's critical because it needs to be cost effective for the operator themselves. We've been on the cloud journey for a while, and for us, cloud is all about the principles of zero touch, 100% automation, fast time to market. And fast time to market really means you can roll out new services quickly without disruption to the operator. They shouldn't need to think about a 6-month turnaround to deploy. In our MVNO space, which is very interesting, our time to market is less than 3 months, which is really one of our compelling value propositions, especially in the BSS, which is quite transformative. And the MVNOs are very different to the MNOs in terms of they are very business orientated. They don't come with the infrastructure, the larger ecosystem. They're looking to basically bring their business value to market as quickly as possible. And cloud has enabled that for us. In addition to that, we feel openness for us is fundamental. We're a huge advocate of what the TM Forum are trying to do with the ODA. And we don't see it as a threat to be open. We see it as a value proposition because it gives us more opportunity to integrate with other vendors. And we should live on our own merits of being best in breed and best in class. And so, that flexibility to know that the operators themselves have a comfort that when they pick a vendor or a technology, they're not shoehorned into having that technology for the next 10 years. They have optionality. And let's be very clear, as we said at the start of our conversation, this is a very nascent and evolving space. So what works today may not work tomorrow. And we're only on the start of this journey, especially in the B2B and B2B to X space. So I think, picking a single vendor or a single technology, from my perspective, is naive. And we put ourselves in the shoes of the operator at Optiva. And, for us, we'll stand on our own merits. And I think if you've got the core technology with some differentiating value propositions such as value-based charging, I think, you're onto a winner.
So I guess it's about that ability to experiment, isn't it? And I think when we look at the large digital players, they often get things wrong. They get things wrong and they move on. And that really hasn't been part of the telco culture until now. And that has to change because you need to learn to fail and fail fast.
Yeah. Well, fail and fail fast, or iterate and iterate to improve, for sure. And again, as we talked about in terms of capabilities, it's not purely just about cloud, it's also about your application. So we take the charging as a scenario. For us, the ability to roll out new products, new services, and get that closed loop feedback quickly so that you can see the effectiveness of what you've issued in the last campaign, what's getting adoption, what's not. One example being, one operator launches a new campaign over the weekend to try and disrupt their competitor. The ability is for that competitor to react within not weeks and months, but within days. And that's what we've done a lot of work in terms of, again, that life cycle, that ability to launch new offerings quickly and to see that feedback coming in on whether they're successful, and to tune and to iterate. So yes, cloud allows you to roll out new features and new functions, but the application itself allows you to actually tweak and modify what you offer to the end consumer or to the enterprise.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts today. And let's just hope the telcos can make a success of 5G and the technology that it brings with it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, everybody.